outstanding Joe Sabatic.
Call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone here this evening. It's always a pleasure to see a crowd out here. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'll ask Cielo Arbaca to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Thank you. If you'll just wait right there, we'll be right here. Next item then is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you. Each month we recognize a student and a teacher from the public school system for their outstanding service to the children and to the community of Zebulon. And this month is from the middle school over here. And so I would like to ask Cielo to stand with me while I read this. Cielo Medina Arbaca was chosen to be recognized as an outstanding student at Zebulon Middle School. She is a shining example of a Zebulon Middle Cougar on the prowl. Proud of achieving. Cielo has always strived to do her best and has earned straight A's on all 3 report cards so far this year. R is respectful of self, others, and property. Cielo is kind to students and staff and respectful of the school environment. O, organizing for success. Cielo keeps track of important assignments and due dates. She always works hard to complete all assignments and assist other students if they ask for help. W, working for a safe environment. Cielo is respectful and responsible in the classroom, hallways, and cafeteria. And L, learning to lead. Cielo is a member of the History Fair team, which reached the state finals competition on April 28th. Other students look to her as a leader in the classroom and in her extracurricular activities. And we congratulate you and thank you. The teacher is Lisa Larson. Is Lisa here? Lisa Larson spent 19 years teaching in Florida before moving to Zebulon and has been a teacher at Zebulon Gifted and Talented Magnet Middle School for the past 4 years. During her time here, she has taught mostly 6th grade social studies, but has even taught language arts and math. Ms. Larson is very involved in the Zebulon Middle School community outside of the classroom as well. She has coached girls volleyball and participated in the school improvement team and the school leadership team. This year, she is the 6th grade chairperson. Ms. Larson, real love is history, and she shares that love with her students, not only in her classroom, but also as the advisor to the Zebulon Middle School National History Fair team, which competes at the North Carolina History Day competition. For North Carolina History Day, students design an exhibit, write a paper, produce a documentary, create a performance, or develop a website centered around the theme. This year's theme was Conflict and Compromise in History. Ms. Larson took a team of 22 students to the regional competition that was held in Greensboro a few weeks ago. 12 of those students qualified for the state competition held this past Saturday in downtown Raleigh. 2 of those finished in 3rd place in the state. All of this and Ms. Larson's passion for teaching and love for the students are the reason she is our spotlight teacher of the month. Thanks to all of our schools and all of our students. Next item is the public comment period. We, each month at our first meeting, have what I like to refer to as an open mic. So people wishing to speak must sign up, which they have done, and they will have 3 minutes. I will caution you that the green light is you're still good. The yellow light, you have 30 seconds, and the red light, I'm going to stop you. So please be aware of the signals that you're receiving. So first is Billy Green.
Good evening. I really don't think I'm going to need this mic, but since it's up here, I'll use it. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I really don't need an introduction as far as you all are concerned, I don't think. For some of the distinguished guests and some of the visitors here, though, probably I do. I am Billy Green. I've been a citizen from Zebulon all of my life, and that covers a period of 21 years. Now, for those of you who have trouble with the math, that's 39. I've been around a while. But again, I am Billy Green, and I'm a member of the Zebulon Vision Citizens Group. Very proud to be so, I might add. Yes, and you guessed it, we are still here. Members of this group are putting in countless hours to share what we feel are good plans for you to consider. Just like you, we want the best for Zebulon, and working together, we can have the best. We have been fortunate to have not only our Zebulon citizens involved, but professionals and elected officials that share our vision in getting the Little River Dam repaired, along with improvements to the park. I want to thank you for what you do and for allowing me to speak on behalf of the group. And I should have told you, Mr. Mayor, I plan to leave the light running green while I was up here, so thank you all very much.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Green. Let me add that, yes, we know you, but our tape recorder doesn't. Our tape recorder does not. We record this, all comments, and it is filmed for East Wake TV as well.
So do I have to turn in on
now you're a star.
5 to see it?
Now you're a star.
Am I excused?
Yes, sir. You certainly are. Thank you. Appreciate it. Scott Carpenter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Scott Carpenter. I'm the Board Chair of Preservation Zebulon. We're a local nonprofit, and we advocate for the preservation of everything around Zebulon. I just wanted to give you a brief update of some of the activities that our nonprofit has been working on. We find them very interesting and wanted to share with the town. Of course, we're always interested in good press coming to Zebulon, and we think we're trying to do our civic part to bring some good press to this town. We recently had our first historic walking tour through downtown Zebulon. This was attended by about a dozen people. We met on a Saturday morning, and we walked through downtown for about 2 miles and 90 minutes and talked about some of the early movers and shakers of this town. It was really fun. It was very fascinating. We're going to repeat this again. Our next tour will be Saturday, May 19th, starting at 10 a.m. This is something similar to what Wake Forest and other towns have done. We intend to run some of these walking tours a few times a year. So we really enjoyed that. Soon we're going to have a guided tour of the Horton Kimball House up in the Wakefield area. This will be June 9th. So those that don't want to don't want to walk through the town for a couple of miles, if you'd like to come to that event, you can find us on our social media page and our website. So that's a house that was built in the 1890s. We know the person that owns it. They're going to open that up for a tour. Next, if you recall, about a year ago, this council voted in favor for the town of Zebulon to rejoin the Wake County interlocal agreement. And we again want to thank you for that. It was very helpful to our organization. It opened up some state and county funding for some research that is now ongoing, and we wanted to report on that. So a study is now ongoing of this area. It's covering about 300 historic homes and buildings. From that, a report will be generated that will be made public, as our understanding, around the fall of 2018. And we intend to use some of that information and for our organization, which we have a goal of creating one or more districts that could be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So again, thank you for your support in that. It was very helpful in getting some of that funding to get that study underway. And last, we'd like to make an announcement that our Preservation Zebulon's Executive Director, Mary Beth Carpenter, who's here with us tonight, was offered and has accepted a position as a commissioner on the Wake County Historic Preservation Commission. So there's a lot of interest in the historic nature of what's going on in and around Zebulon, and Mary Beth will represent the town very well in getting some of that information out there. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the speakers that signed up. So we now have 3 proclamations, which I will read. And at the end of each one, I would ask for a motion to adopt each one individually. The first is proclamation of National Public Works Week, May 21st through May 27th, 2018. Whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to the health, safety, and well-being of the citizens of Zebulon, and whereas those facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public works employees, and whereas those individuals build, operate, maintain, and administer the streets, sidewalks, greenways, stormwater infrastructure, solid waste and recycling collections, public buildings, and other structures and facilities that are vital to the citizens of Zebulon. And whereas it is in the interest of the public for citizens and civic leaders to understand the role that public infrastructure plays in protecting the environment, improving public health and safety, contributing to economic vitality, and enhancing the quality of life of our community. Therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Zebulon joins the American Public Works Association and other interested agencies and civic organizations in recognizing the contributions of public works professionals to the health, safety, and quality of life in Zebulon, and resolves that the week of May 21 through May 27, 2018 is proclaimed as National Public Works Week. The Board of Commissioners recognizes and celebrates the important contributions public works professionals make every day to the community. And then it would, of course, be signed by the mayor upon adoption by the board. So I'll ask for a motion.
I move that we use May 21st through May 27th as National Public Works Week.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor? And the motion carries. The next one is proclamation of National Police Appreciation Week, May 13th through May 19th, 2018. Whereas the public officers of America have worked devotedly and selflessly in behalf of the people of this nation, regardless of the peril or hazard to themselves, and whereas these officers have safeguarded the lives and property of their fellow Americans, and whereas by enforcement of our laws, these officers have given our country internal freedom from fear of the violence and civil disorder. Now, therefore, we, the Town of Zebulon Board of Commissioners, do recognize the week of May 13 through May 19, 2018 as Police Week, and further recognize May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of the federal, state, and municipal officers who have been killed or disabled in the line of duty. The motion?
I make a motion we adopt proclamation for the National Police Appreciation Week.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor? Thank you. And finally, proclamation of Municipal Clerks Week, May 6th through May 12th, 2018. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international professional organizations, and whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk, now therefore, we, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Zebulon, do recognize the week of May 6th through May 12th, 2018 as Municipal Clerk Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk and all municipal clerks for the vital services they performed and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent.
I move that we adopt the proclamation of Municipal Clerk Week.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any other comments? All in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving to old business, planning the thoroughfare plan.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. What we have before you tonight is a transportation plan update. Some of this you'll recall from our joint public hearing. Some of the background with regards to our transportation plans. The first major multimodal transportation plan was done back in 2001, and it was completed by Wilbur Smith Associates. In 2014, there was an update to the plan, which analyzed local and regional growth patterns and had a planning horizon updated to 2035 from 2025 as opposed to the previous plan. We've also had a Greenway bicycle and pedestrian master plan that was approved back in October of 2015. And then in 2017, we had some changes on the staff level that worked with WSP for the transportation plan itself. Some of the other updates with regards to North Arundel, in 2009, there was a access management plan, and this looked at safe and efficient access to and from Arundel Avenue. That plan was further looked at in March of 2012, and an engineering report was done, which kind of got into the functional design of the roadway itself. And then the current plans, we have a draft North Arundel access and operational improvement copy there. That was the April 2017 copy. That is currently being updated. My understanding is that there was a kickoff meeting on May 3rd with Volkert and Public Works Department staff, and then updated plans should be submitted to DOT the first week of June for that plan. Some of the growth and development that we're seeing, the numbers here are approved special use permits that have been approved through you all. And each of those together, 5 total, 2,718 dwelling units. Again, that deals with Weaver's Pond, 776. There's a little more than 200 homes currently either built or under construction out there. And then Tarrant Meadows and Tarrant Lakes is currently under development as well. Shepherd's Park is the 302, along with Autumn Lakes. Those have plans approved and are currently either installing infrastructure or about to install infrastructure, and then Barrington being the 837. The dots represent some property and some developments that have not necessarily submitted for plans yet, but we wanted to throw them out on the radar as projects that are kind of lingering out there, and these are projects that have talked to us since January of this year. So between the dots on the map, and they all total 581 acres, which, looking at about 4 dwelling units per acre, is another 2,324 dwelling units. So certainly in the next 8 or 10 years, when all these projects, if any of these projects hit the ground, certainly is going to change the transportation infrastructure that we currently use. This is kind of a cycle of land use and transportation. Again, the land use, how we use the land impacts our transportation. Agricultural certainly has a different use than commercial or industrial. And then as you have the increased traffic, as land use changes, traffic volumes increase, and the number of driveways typically increase as well. Based on the increased traffic, there is transportation needs that has an impact on the type of travel that we have, whether it's cars or bicycles or walking. And then the transportation facilities, more congestion certainly leads to deterioration of the roads. And then all of that has an effect on how we as people or as product moves around the infrastructure. Development does bring transportation facilities with more roads, sidewalks, and greenways. With that, there's an increase in accessibility and an increase in land value. So as the land increases, becomes more valuable, developers look at it and certainly pick them up, and kind of starts the cycle all over again. So that's currently what we're seeing with a lot of properties, certainly with the development interest. The plan revisions for this amendment is to further address the growth and development pressures that we are either currently seeing or will see here in the near future. It's to create better connectivity and consistency through the map and configurations, as well as some of the recent development projects. Also is to incorporate some of the previous plan amendments, and then address some of the areas that weren't previously covered in the plan itself. It also has references to the adopted Greenway, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Master Plan, as well as includes intersections and signalization improvements that you'll see here in a minute. So this is Appendix A, which is update to the map that's currently in the transportation plan. This is kind of a zoomed in section. As you can see, there's different color codes as well as numbers that represent different corridors throughout town. What we also incorporated onto the map was the greenway trails, as well as any bikeways that may be shown. So those are now reflected on the map as well. We also added, since we look at the transportation impact fee, we added all of the signals, as well as the ones that have a circle around it. Could be a signal, or it could also be a traffic circle for the intersection. That happens to be Pierce's and Proctor there. So those are noted on here as well. The cross sections that we tried our best as staff to update. The 2014 was the last one that the consultant worked on, and the 2018 While some of the ones, I think this one in the picture doesn't show any changes from what it previously was. There were some sections in previously adopted amendments that weren't included into the plan, so we had to either create cross-sections for those or modify them to all be uniform throughout the plan itself. This is one of the examples of the Appendix B growth sections. This is Old Bun Road from Shepherd School all the way down to NC 39. And this is consistent with the Highway 96 plan that's currently shown. So that referenced B10, which is the same cross-section there. Some of the consistency, this is Gannon Avenue, Highway 97. As you can see in the current plan, there were a few cross-sections that changed as you went down Gannon Avenue. So part of that was trying to bring consistency to the plan and also to create a little gateway coming into town from the east side there on 97. Some of the development projects, this is Pierce's Road from Arundel to Pippin. I think it stops there at the creek, but in the plan itself it does extend beyond. This matches the work that's being done for the Highway 96 project as well. It just extends it a little bit farther based on some of the development pressures that we're currently seeing. These were all of the cross-sections that were part of the 2017 plan update. There were no changes to any of these cross-sections. They were just being incorporated into the cross-sections and into the broader plan that we have, so they weren't no longer referenced by reference. They were included into the plan itself. Some of the new coverage areas, this just some of the outer skirts. This is Gannon and then Old Bun Road that extends to Highway 39. And then 96 as you go a little bit farther north wasn't included in the plan as well. And then some of kind of what's involved with the Highway 96 plan itself. So you have the service road behind Parish Realty and then Jones Street where it extends beyond Dogwood there. So those were included within the plan as well. The Greenway plan, while it was included as a reference in the appendix, we were referencing the adopted Greenway Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. And then this goes back to the transportation impact fee as we look at it on annual as part of the budget process. We were incorporating all of the notations in there where we have a fee or where we're collecting for a transportation impact fee. We're noting some of the improvements there. Some of the implementation strategies, developers can, and it's not necessarily a one and that's it. Can be a combination of these where developers dedicate the right-of-way for their project. They may be required to construct half of the roadway section or pay a fee in lieu for that roadway section, similar to what we did with some of the projects along Highway 96 and the funds that are being used for the broader grant project. Do improvements per a traffic impact analysis. This might be where a subdivision comes to town and they have to do a traffic impact analysis, which lays out the types of improvements that they'll have to install and typically the timing of those improvements as well. And then pay a fee in lieu based on the improvements that are required. And then the impact fee is a noted that we look at on an annual basis. Again, this clarifies some of the revision objectives dealing with growth and new development. Again, bringing consistency and connectivity throughout the town, incorporating those previous plan amendments, addressing some of the areas not previously covered, and then the reference to the Greenway plan, and then expanding it to include some of those intersection and signalization improvements. Staff recommends approval of this request. The text amendment is ZA 2018-01. The planning board unanimously recommended approval of it as well after the joint public hearing. And then the board action is to either approve it or deny it, and then require any changes or modifications, approve it with modifications, or you certainly have the ability to table it for further discussion. And the next meeting would be the June 4th meeting. And with that, if you have any questions.
Questions from the board?
Mark, do we have any public input on this transportation plan? Do we have a stakeholders thing?
Not for the plan itself. The last, we did request a broad and kind of overarching transportation plan overhaul that looks at both transportation plan amendments along with the land use components. We held the public hearing for this text amendment, but it did not involve a broader public input.
Okay.
Other questions? All right. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion, we adopt the multimodal transportation plan revisions.
Identified as ZA 2018-01.
That's right.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Other comments or discussion? All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, strategic plan 2030.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. At your annual retreat, February 22nd and 23rd of this year, the board gathered community feedback and developed a framework for the Zebulon 2030 strategic plan's vision, mission, focus areas, and tactical actions for the next decade. This framework was pulled together into a draft document and presented to the board at your work session on April 18th. The Zebulon 2030 strategic plan draft is presented to you tonight to unveil it to the community for review and feedback. The presentation before the board will provide a brief synopsis of the process followed and the milestones achieved while developing the plan, and will describe how the community can review and comment on the plan. The intent is to adopt the Zebulon 2030 strategic plan with the FY 2019 budget and 5-year capital improvement plan at your meeting on June 4th. And with that, I will recognize and introduce Julie Brenman of Fountain Works.
Thank you. Good evening. Let me just get the document. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Julie Brenman with Fountain Works, and here to present the work that you've been doing for the last several months. I want to really start by reminding you the purpose of a strategic plan is to create this framework for decisions as you move forward and describe the Zebulon that you want to be working toward. You so often are faced with tactical day-to-day decisions that it takes time and effort to plan ahead and be strategic. So this is what you've been doing for the last several months. The process that we went through to create this strategic plan, we sort into 4 main phases, and I'll talk through the phases right now. The first phase was gathering citizen and employee input. We started by getting input from the senior management from the town. We conducted a citizen survey. About 200 residents responded to the survey. It was available online as well as in person. Folks that attended the holiday pop-up market downtown were recruited to respond to the survey as well. There was a citizen focus group. There's a picture there of some of the work that was done at the focus group, and about 35 residents and business owners came to the focus group. And then there was an employee focus group as well, where in addition to the earlier input from the senior management team, we had about 10 employees representing the different departments of the city that provided input. We gathered all this input and presented it to you all at your board retreat in February. And during the retreat, we focused on visioning what the future of Zebulon should look like, creating a mission, looking at the values, and developing goals and actions. The third phase we've been working on sort of behind the scenes is turning all of that information into a plan. We've been working with staff and we presented that to you last month at your work session. And then the final phase is implementation, and the staff is responsible for implementing the plan and using it as a framework as they move forward with things like the budget. So I want to highlight the main pieces of the strategic plan for you all. The first is the mission, and the mission that you've established is that Zebulon is committed to enhancing the quality of life of our residents by delivering excellent, friendly services and fostering collaboration within our community. So the mission describes the core reason the town government exists. The vision that you all developed is that Zebulon is a vibrant, growing community that maintains its small town charm and heritage. And so the vision is aspirational. It's what you would like to be, and you use that as a guide when you're thinking about decisions about how to move forward. And some of the key words in there is that the town is vibrant, you recognize that it's growing, but you want to maintain that small town charm and recognize your heritage and your history. The town employees went through a process where they developed the values that would guide how they serve the community. And the values that they came up with were honesty and integrity, family, respect, dependability, and teamwork. And these are how the staff wants to treat the community and how they want to treat each other. As part of the strategic plan, you identified 3 core focus areas. Those are the areas that you see as most important in helping achieve the strategic plan vision. So having a vibrant downtown, maintaining your small town life, and growing smart were important. And some of the focus areas within those are laid out here. For a vibrant downtown, you want to focus on revitalizing the downtown area of Zebulon. And I'll circle back to the community and employee input. You developed all of these priorities based on their input, and that vibrant downtown was the #1 thing that came out of the community and employee input, that you really want to see downtown vibrant. You also want to develop more events, entertainment, and cultural attractions to draw more people downtown. In the small town life focus area, you want to promote more community events and festivals. You want to enhance and create more community gathering places and to increase the connectedness and walkability in the community. So these are some things that really create that atmosphere of a small town that makes people like to come here as a respite from some of the busier parts of the state. And then growing smart was your third focus area, and you just saw in the thoroughfare plan that you continue to grow and you want to plan for that growth. So you want to plan for appropriate land use to meet transportation and housing needs. You want to pursue economic development opportunities with your community partners, and you want to maintain appropriate staffing within the town government to support the expected service levels for the growing community. So all of those together will create the growing smart area. Your next steps, you're not expected to adopt the strategic plan today. We're opening it for public feedback. I believe the staff is posting it on the website, and there's a survey, so if anyone wants to provide feedback on this strategic plan prior to your next meeting, they can do it through the survey or through other communication channels. And then the plan itself would be adopted after you've gotten that feedback at your next board meeting on June 4th. And with that, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from the
Is
board?
the plan online?
Is the plan online?
On the website.
Can you read it?
It will be posted tomorrow.
Okay.
And again, repeating what you said, it will be on our website. Plus, there's a Survey Monkey for you to be able to put comments in if you have any. And I encourage everybody to take a look at it. This is our roadmap.
Yes, yes.
Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, budget presentation, Joe.
Yes, that's appropriate. This is going to take longer than 3 minutes. I hate to inform everyone.
I still have the gavel.
Yes, you do. You do with that. Good evening once again. Tonight is the presentation of your FY19 operating and capital budget. Most specifically, this is going to be the budget message to introduce the budget. The outline for tonight's presentation is to review the statutory requirements. There is state law that governs how and when you do things to adopt a budget. We'll review the specifics of Zebulon's budget schedule and process, and then I'll get into the meat of the presentation, which is the budget message itself. So as far as the statutory requirements, there is actually a state law that oversees the development of the budget. Unlike a lot of state law that defers authority to another organization, as an example, Department of Environmental Quality, well, they'll give authority to that organization and then let that organization come up with the rules. The General Assembly is very specific and dictates the rules within the state law itself. That state law is a statute 159, more popularly known as the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. Some of the specifics of that act include deadlines. So before April 30th, all departments have to submit budget requests and revenue estimates. And here at the town of Zebulon, operating budget requests were submitted to my office by January 31st, and the capital budget was submitted by March 2nd. So we met the deadline on both of those budgets. Not later than June 1st, the budget officer submits the budget and budget message to the board. In the council manager form of government, which is what the town of Zebulon follows, your budget officer is your town manager, so I am in that role not only throughout the year, but tonight specifically. And we met that goal by delivering this to you tonight. Not later than July 1st, you need to adopt a budget ordinance, but before you adopt the budget ordinance, you need to hold a public hearing. And that has been scheduled for your next regularly scheduled meeting in this room at 7 o'clock on June 4th. So those are statutory requirements, more specific to the town of Zebulon, the budget schedule and the process. Budget message is being delivered tonight. Components of the budget message include the goals and the features of budgeted activities, changes from the previous year, most specifically the programs, and the changes in appropriations. And then you'll have a series of 3 work sessions. These work sessions will be on an 8-day cycle, so we're not pinning them on the same day of every week. So your first budget work session is 8 days after this one, so it'll be on a Tuesday night. The one after that will be another 8 days, May 23rd, so that'll be Wednesday of that following week. And then the final work session is May 31st, which is a Thursday. At those work sessions, we will provide for you details of the programs that are being presented to you tonight, to provide not only details, but to take questions on those programs or any other programs. And with every work session, we offer an opportunity for public input. Just as a point of clarification, those who are interested in speaking at public input are not necessarily constrained to the topics of the programs discussed at that night. We understand that people are busy and they may be only able to make one work session during the month, so anything that they want to bring before your attention is fair game at any of the public inputs, regardless of what program is being discussed at that particular work session. Then the budget ordinance public hearing, as we mentioned, is scheduled for June 4th. And as far as adopting the budget ordinance, you can do it that night. We will place it on your agenda for consideration. If you don't want to adopt it, you have another regularly scheduled meeting to June 13th, so you can table it until that time. And then you can create any time that you want, just as long as you adopt the budget, not later than July 1st. So that is the statutory requirements and Zebulon-specific schedule. As far as the budget message that's put before you, we repeat a theme that we started sharing with you last year at budget message, which Zebulon is changing. We mentioned that the population is growing and changing. Most specifically, if you take a look at the number of residential building permits that have been pulled to date, and if you agree with the U.S. Census Bureau that 2.62 people live per house, Zebulon is now growing at a person a day. So every time we wake up, another person has joined the town of Zebulon. Across the county, and this is information from Wake County, this growth is coming from, 64% of that growth is coming from net migration, 36% is coming from natural increase. So what that means is this: natural increase just means births are at a higher rate than deaths. Net migration means people are moving here from someplace else. So in Wake County, 64% are coming from a different part of the state, coming from different states, and in some cases even coming from different countries. Use of land is changing and diversifying. We've now converted over 900 acres that used to grow tobacco. They're now growing houses. And as Mark hinted at earlier, we prospectively have 650 more acres on the way. So we repeat the question that we asked you last year, which is, will we have the capacity to meet this change? Which means, will we have an adequate police force to serve the number of citizens moving into our town? Will we have enough recreation programs to serve the number of people that are moving into our town? We also asked a qualitative question, which is, will we have the capability to meet this change? Meaning that, will our police force have the skills to approach and deal with the different issues that are coming with this growth? Will our parks and recreation programs offer programs that are relevant and meaningful and desired to this growth? So we have both a capacity and capability question to answer. And to give some perspective, historic perspective, before I get into what we are proposing to you in the upcoming budget, I wanted to talk a little bit about the origin of the town of Zebulon that you all know much better than I do, and I've been getting educated on. So first and foremost, Zebulon really gets its start as a railroad town. I mean, it has semblance of things before them, but really, railroad is literally what puts Zebulon on the map. So when the train comes through, and this is a hard map to read, but what this is this just a schematic of the railway system in North Carolina up until the time that the line came through Zebulon. So there was a network of railroads in the Piedmont section of the state that collected tobacco and brought it into Durham to get produced into product. And then there was a network along the coast that tied into the seaports, so up here in Virginia and down here in Morehead City. And the rail line that came through and created Zebulon was this connection right there. And it connected this network with this network. And I think Preservation Zebulon could maybe do a little bit of homework and help me out, but I find it interesting that both we and Morehead City share a road of the same name, but they pronounce it Arundel, I think. This is an older map showing the railroad network, and you can see this is the rail line coming out of Raleigh, going through the towns of, let's see, Knightdale, and then Eagle Rock, and Wendell, and Zebulon. You can see Wakefield a little bit off the map. It's bolder text, so it was more populous at the time. And I think history has shown what has happened with that. Also had a rail line going up through what was a town of Millbrook before it got incorporated into the city of Raleigh. And then there's rail line here coming out of Apex up through Morrisville into Durham. That is now the American Tobacco Trail. So that's the origins. And as a result of that, we had farming in our town, but it really took off as a farm to market town. We shared this map with you at your retreat. This is the geologic map of Wake County, showing the bedrock formations within Wake County. And bedrock literally is the foundation of any town. It's the bedrock because it dictates what can be built on that land, but also the top layer of any bedrock forms the soil, and all soils are different, and so as a result they support different crops. And as we talked at retreat, this area right in here produced the series of soils called Appling Durham soils, which were absolutely phenomenal in crop yield for tobacco. And so as you all know, you grew a lot of tobacco and you were good at it, and so you had a market for it and you literally took it to market. And as a result of that, Zebulon became a market town. This is not Zebulon, but it proved the point that I was trying to illustrate. When you have crops here, which is your land use, and you have your road here, which is your transportation plan, all you need to do is have a transportation plan that facilitates what's being done here. And for farming communities, all you need is a 2-lane hard surface road, a road that is can be traveled on in different types of weather, but a road, all you need is a road to get into the market and one to bring you back. And that was the destination. That's a picture of the depot. And once the goods are sold and they're on their way and you're in town, you decide that you need to pick up some things. And so maybe you visit Debnam Hardware, which is celebrating 100 years this year, and maybe you go to the department store. And I think if you look closely, you can still see some of the faded paint on the outside of the department store. So Zebulon was a market town as well. But Zebulon is also a changing town. So this is the grid work of the downtown area. And this is right here, Gannon, coming through town, and this was the old 64. And when you got to this split past Arundel, near where the church is now, you could go off to the northeast and go to Rocky Mount, or you could go off to the southeast and head to Wilson. And so this was the grid that supported that market town and the transportation network that came through the area. Then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we as a country spent a lot of money on building roads, and North Carolina was no exception to that, and built 2 major roads coming through the area that really were of interstate quality, US 64 and then US 264. And so that resulted in some other changes as well. This is an aerial photograph. Up here is US 64 and then bending to the northeast, and 264 bending southeast to Wilson. This tight grid of a residential area starts to change. Some of the things that happen is, especially with the road network being out here and the extension of utilities, you start to see more residential activity occur out here. So you've got residential activity out here as well as down here. In addition to that, Zebulon becomes a phenomenal supply and distribution place for a lot of businesses. So you have a GlaxoSmithKline come in here, you have Nameco and Nomacorp come in here, you have US Foods come in here, and they're able to tie on to this road network that then ties into a bigger road network, specifically I-95, and into the port system as well. And so as a result of that, Zebulon becomes a very unique town, one of a very few handful throughout the state that has a larger commercial/industrial tax base than it does a residential tax base. And that has positive sides to it and has negative sides to it as well. As a result of the residences moving outward, the services, specifically the retail services to serve those expanding residential areas, start to migrate out of town. So this is Wedgwood Shopping Center being an early example of that, Walmart being a later example of that. And then with that, the land uses downtown start to change. And I wanted to talk to you all before I presented this slide, but I was going to guess this looks like either a five and dime or maybe a pharmacy. But when the travel patterns are being pulled out of town, those businesses change. And so left to the free market, specifically in the downtown, those uses of buildings will drop to their lowest available use. And so we've got some things that we're going to present to you in the budget to reverse that trend. And then finally, as part of the change in town, you see with all the subdivisions that are coming in, next time you go out and you realize, man, there's a lot of people here. And on top of that, I don't know many of them. And so we're going through changes as well. We're being surrounded by more people and less people that we know. And so we've got some things that we're going to present to you into the budget that addresses this as well. So with that, let me get to the budget message itself. So to the questions, do we have the capacity to meet this change? Do we have the capability to meet this change? We believe we do. By focusing on the focus areas that were just presented to you, by growing smart, by having a vibrant downtown, and preserving and protecting small town life. So a couple of examples that are in the budget presented to you under Grow Smart, specifically in our fire service. Here are the issues. We've been deferring maintenance. Our service area is expanding, and the level of service that we're providing out of the existing fire station is a lot different than the level of service we were providing out of that fire station when it was first built. As far as the deferred maintenance, this is Engine 91. Engine 91 just celebrated its 21st birthday, and while many in this room, myself included, would probably love to see 21 again and the opportunities that it presents itself, there are limited opportunities available for Engine 91. It has seen its better days. Even though it looks good on the inside, it is not a reliable piece of equipment for us. And then there is Ladder 95, which has now entered its third decade of service, a similar situation. It is not a reliable piece of equipment. In fact, right now it's in Virginia getting worked on, and we are reliant upon Wendell providing us backup with their ladder service. Expanding service area. It's going to be hard to tell, but I'll do my best with a cursor. This is your fire station right now. And when we were serving a residential area that was located here, our response was really good. Now we're having to travel to areas on the outside of those service areas. And as we mentioned at retreat 2 retreats ago, time is of the essence. The difference in minutes and seconds can mean the difference of a fire being contained to a room rather than engulfing the entire house. The difference between minutes and seconds can be the difference between whether we can resuscitate someone or not. And level of service is changing. We're piling a lot of things into the existing building. So this bay area, as an example, is being used as both our storage for a lot of vehicles that we have to conscientiously decide how to back in so we know how to respond to a call. But it's also serving as our storage area for equipment as well. To say nothing of the limitations we've got in sleeping quarters, in training quarters, and even office space. We are literally putting people into closet space now. So the goals of the budget to address all of these issues is we want to be reliable. We want to know when the alarm goes off, we can bring a piece of equipment that is going to get us there and bring you the help that you need. We want to be responsive. We want to get from wherever we place this station, we want to get to you within that critical response time so that we can make the difference between containing a fire or losing a structure. And capacity. We not only want to have enough room to house equipment and house offices and training, but we want to grow for the future as well. So the features of the budget that are presented to you is that we're putting before you to replace the ladder, replace the engine, and we want to get onto a routine replacement cycle. One of the reasons that we had to replace this and this in the same year is we've just been deferring maintenance But that means that not only have we deferred maintenance on these two pieces of equipment, but we got two others right behind them. And so we're going to present a package to you that not only replaces these two, but replaces the others and then gets us onto a routine and periodic replacement. And then, as was mentioned to you at your retreat, this fire station down here is beyond capacity and outside the service area of where our residential structures are going. And so this budget, it kicks off the very next step, most specifically a preliminary engineering report of what's needed for a new fire station. Other part of growing smart is we need to plan. So we recognize that land is changing. All this area out here that used to grow tobacco is now growing houses. And so the market is changing. No longer is tobacco being brought to market, but people are going to work, bringing their brains, bringing their skill set to a different marketplace. And that marketplace could be in RTP, it could be in Raleigh. We even have examples of people driving to Rocky Mount and Wilson. So the goal is we want to be sustainable. While we look forward to a lot of aspects of this growth, if we don't have the transportation network to couple with it, it'll just choke that growth off because it'll produce too many problems that no more growth can occur. So this budget has a feature where we're updating our transportation plan. And while Mark just presented you a revision of the transportation plan, all that was meant to do was just get caught up with some of the development that we're seeing by widening some of the roadways. It doesn't talk about some more fundamental issues that we've got about having additional interchange points along your highways here, as well as the introduction of new north-south and east-west routes within and throughout the town. And land use update. You can't have one without the other. Land use drives transportation, transportation supports land use, so you have to do both at the same time. But also there's some practical reasons to update the land use. A land use plan is based upon populations and population estimates based on the 2000 estimate, 2000 census. In addition to that, the amount of land that we're developing is exceeding the original boundaries of the land use plan. So it's out of date, but it's also out of boundary as well. Under the, I'm sorry, I messed up my animation, so you have to bear with me. You got a sneak peek. So, vibrant downtown. So the issues, when the traffic moved to the outskirts of town, these businesses downtown, they lost out on economies of scale. There was no way businesses of this size were going to be able to compete with these big box retail stores. But the other thing that happened is there was not enough replacement of foot traffic. So the vehicles were taking customers to these businesses on the outskirts. There was not the development of the foot traffic that could support these local businesses. So I think the work that Preservation Zebulon is doing is really intriguing, and I think could ultimately be helpful about physically getting people, giving them tours of downtown and then getting them interested. Even specifically, the Carpenters are a great example of this, of taking an older property and redeveloping it and turning it into a viable residential piece of property. So what we're really looking for as a goal is resiliency. Yes, we want the downtown to be vibrant. We want it to be a community gathering place, but downtowns offer a unique place, if we do it right, to be resilient to downturns in the economy. You look at some big box stores, even they are being subject to downturns in the economy because they're getting competition from online traffic. Downtowns, because they're unique, because they have a niche and they serve foot traffic, they can be a model of resiliency. So that's our ultimate goal, is to have a resilient downtown. And so the features included in this budget, your incentives program is working out very, very well. The facade grant program that you kicked off 2 years ago is showing results. And so the Bullock building is one of the prime examples that we noted. And you can see the improvements that Brian Bullock has made down there. And really the facade grants it's a catalyst. It's a way to kind of grease the skids. The amount of work that Mr. Bullock put in, both externally and internally, is far greater than the facade grant. The facade grant greased the skids. It was a way to show that the town has interest in redeveloping downtown. And so the return on investment for the town has proved phenomenal. Whitley Gallery was the first to go, then Bullock. Pizza Amore has come in, and I think Zebulon Times has come in as well. However, just investing in buildings and just investing into sidewalks is not enough. You have to actually engage the public. The public has to have sweat equity and interest in having a thriving downtown. And so your streetscape match has proven effective in engaging nonprofit groups. This picture on the lower left is an example of the work the Women's Club and the Steel Magnolias have done in putting pots on Main. And this is a particularly powerful example because in order to keep these plants alive, people have to tend to them. And if people are tending to them, there's people on the street. And if people drive by and they see people on the street, they know that it's not a forgotten downtown. And even if they don't see people downtown, they see something living is growing there, and it must be growing because people are tended to. And so that's a really strong example of how your streetscape match program is working. And we are going to continue that program and have it offered for you for consideration in this upcoming budget. Your redevelopment is, I'll look at this building right here. The obstacles or the unique constraints that you see with redeveloping property downtown is unlike constraints that you'll see anywhere else. In the more suburban parts of town, there's more land, and so they have ability to do more things on that footprint. Downtown, the boundaries are real tight, and so you all are concluding your Unified Development Ordinance, which will allow regulations to make redevelopment of existing property easier and actually just more practical for that matter. And another thing we're going to put before you for your consideration is funding a maintenance code, attaching it to your Unified Development Ordinance. So this is really when this picture right here was supposed to pop up. Right now, your code, if there is a window that is broken out, all they're required to do is just put up a covering over it so that they can put up galvanized steel, they can put up lumber, anything that covers the hole meets your code. One thing that you may want to consider, and this is something we stumbled into because it seems like Whitley did a really good job with it, is these still are solid coverings. But the aesthetics of it make it look like it's a window. And so that's something we're going to put before you to see if you want to have something like a maintenance code for your downtown overlay district. All right, moving to the next focus area, small town life. This is all hinges on developing the community. So since we're converting crops to houses, instead of growing crops, we're now growing people. And so the features that we have in the budget before you is, and this was mentioned in the strategic plan presentation, continuing and furthering the community events. So your Farm Fresh Market is being even more wildly successful, especially considering when I was here coming up on 3 years ago. This past weekend we had 2,300 people visit the Farm Fresh Market. This is a great thing. Yes, people are coming and they're buying vegetables, but this is an opportunity for people, whether they're longtime residents or whether they're new-time residents, coming together and getting to know each other as well as the town. Another feature in the budget that we'll present to you is community connections. So here's a couple of examples of ways that we connect people to different parts of the community, but also get them connected to each other by walking with each other. Your community park has some good walking trails. Our Parks and Rec department did a really good job of promoting that and identifying down here a legend for the lengths that you could walk to get in your mileage or your steps. And we want to continue this. So specifically, we've got in the budget before you the Beaver Dam Creek Greenway, which will connect Wakeland Elementary School and Park to existing neighborhoods and emerging neighborhoods as well. And then we're looking to engage the community. And engage the community, yes, to get them to participate in fun activities like the Farm Fresh Market, but get them to engage at a deeper level, get them to engage and understand that they are now citizens of Zebulon, and for them to participate in their community in a little bit more meaningful way. And so on the lower left is a great program that our Public Works Department kicked off this year. This is Daffodil Days. And so this is just an example of groups coming together and doing something as simple as planting daffodils along this walkway on Community Park. And I got really worried because after I saw them plant, I saw a bunch of squirrels out there, but they didn't get them all because the daffodils look great. On a more engaged, sustained level, or engagement on a more sustaining level, you've got a great foundation of the Youth Council. We're putting in the budget before you, not only expanding that program as far as the activities they do, but elevating the level of support that they have. And so specifically, we're converting the adult leader from a volunteer position to a part-time position. And then for the adults, for a couple of years now, we've had open houses at both the police department and the fire department, and these have been more social affairs. We're really going to step this up and make these programs more participatory, and so you'll even see some flyers soon offered by the police department and soon to be offered by the fire department about how to engage citizens, get to really understand the business of fire, get them to understand the business of police, and then use that as a building block to get them to really understand how the town runs. Maybe get them to be on a volunteer board. Maybe even they decide that they want to run for office, but a way to get citizens or get residents to understand that they are citizens and to engage them on that level. Because at the end of the day, we're all looking for a place that we want to call home. All right, this is the part for the number crunchers. All right. This is a comparison between the FY18 adopted budget and the FY19 proposed budget. So the revenues we have for the FY18 budget were $9.8 million. What we're expecting for 19 is $14.1 million. Big drivers for that, the property tax last year was about 5.8. We're expecting about 6.4 coming from property tax this year. Sales tax was 1.6. Sales tax this year is 1.685. Restricted intergovernmental, let me explain what that is. Restricted intergovernmental is revenue from another government agency, specifically the state of North Carolina, or typically the state of North Carolina, for a specific purpose. So your gas tax that you pay at the pump is collected by the state of North Carolina. It's given back to the town of Zebulon. Town of Zebulon can use that funds, but only towards things like street paving. So that's an example of restricted intergovernmental. So last year was $936,000. This year's dropped to $789,000. Big reason for that is one of our restricted intergovernmental loans last year was from Wake County. They paid for our radio systems for the fire department because we provide fire service outside of our unincorporated area. And so Wake County pays us, in other words, to provide service to the county. Sales and service, this is so examples being where we provide a service and a direct sale results, and so a payment is made for it. So good examples of this are recycling, waste collection, even programs out of our Parks and Recreation service, our department. And so we've seen those sales and service go up as programs are being used more and more residents are moving to the area. Fund balance, out of your roughly $7 million unassigned fund balance, we drew $500,000 off of that last year. We didn't use all of that, so we're rolling $300,000 over. We are putting before you consideration drawing $1 million off of that, plus the $300,000 rolled from last year. And then loan proceeds specifically, this is going to go towards the payment of those fire equipment, as well as some public works vehicles, as well as some storm drain work that I'll talk about in a little bit as later on in the slides. Tax rate, last year we proposed at 57.5%. That was unchanged from the previous year. This year we're recommending a tax rate increase of 1.7 cents to 59.2 cents. All right, as far as where the money is going, so the expenditures in FY18, $9.8 million was broken down, 7.9 went to operating, 1.2 went to capital, and $746,000 went to debt payments. Not much of a big change with operating. There's a couple of position changes that we're going to put before you in the budget, and I'll go in greater detail on that later on. The big hit is on capital. The big things driving this are the fire equipment that I mentioned, public works vehicles, Beaver Dam Greenway, and the storm drain projects. Your debt went down because as we're paying down the premiums, we have to pay less. And so as you'll see later, we're catching up on paying off some of that debt. All right, specific breakdowns on operating. So last year we proposed the creation of an HR director / town clerk. The board responded that they wanted to do something additional, which was to create a deputy town clerk and an HR technician. And so the staff evaluated some things, came back with some options for the board to consider, which was that we had some unfunded positions that we could, or an unfunded position that we couldn't fill that was related to this, and that by mid-year, maybe we could see some tax revenue come in that would support this. So mid-year, we were able to move forward and create and hire a deputy town clerk / HR technician. That position now has been fully rolled into the budget that's before you. Last year we had concerns about the number of developments that were coming in. So we budgeted for a lot of overtime, and we quickly spent that and came to the realization we had to come back to you mid-year that we needed more permanent help. And so we had a planning permit technician created mid-year based upon the revenues, or funded by the revenues that we were seeing just through plan review. And so that position has now been fully rolled in full-time into the budget before you. The other thing we're doing is we're creating funding for an assistant director of planning. And what we're trying to achieve is a couple of things. The first thing is, with more positions coming on board, there's a lot of time being spent on not only supervising those employees, but a lot of time supervising the day-to-day operations of plan and development activity. And we're not spending enough time on the long-range stuff like land use plans, like transportation plans. And so creating this assistant director position is going to be dedicated to not only overseeing the staff that we've got, but also overseeing the development activity that's going on to make that process as effective and as efficient as it can, and then free up the planning director himself to focus more on the long-range plans. Last year we funded a K-9 officer. Mid-year we saw, once again related to development, fire code inspections going up. We had some fire code inspection dedicated through some opportunities at the fire department. We realized it was very effective as a way to deal with fire code inspections, and the development community and existing businesses were very favorable, and so we came to you mid-year and got that funded. That position has now been fully funded into this upcoming budget. Legal services, I'm just going to give a shout out, even though it embarrasses him, but legal services up until last year were really just on a as needed basis. And so if something came up, we just called up the attorney and we got a bill and hoped that it wasn't a lot. And as we're growing, we're experiencing a lot of different issues. And so as a way to kind of get a handle on that, we asked Derek and Wyrick Robbins to develop a budget for us based upon expected issues, based upon history of past issues, and we have done a really good job on that. And so I just wanted to make sure that they got lauded appropriately, because they did a good job not only developing a budget last year, but staying within it this year. Farm Fresh Market was our first year to start transitioning off the John Rex Foundation. So John Rex funds ended a couple of months into this current fiscal year, and so now we are fully funding the Farm Fresh Market, and that's included in the budget in front of you. The purely new position that we're adding is a construction inspector. With new developments coming, means that new roads are coming, new sidewalks are coming, and when those roads and sidewalks are built, they are turned over to the town to own forever. And so we had been contracting this work out. The workload is just far outpacing our ability to do that. So we have put before for your consideration hiring a full-time construction inspector within the Public Works Department. Last year, we had a merit increase, or merit pool increase, up to 3.5% available to all employees. This year, we're keeping it at 3.5. Our goal is to stay at least a percent above the consumer price index. Consumer price index, last time I checked, was around 2.3, so we're still ahead of on our goal about staying ahead of the CPI. So we're keeping the merit as it was last year. Okay, this is the big driver of the changes in the budget between last year and this year, and it's on the capital side. Last year, 2 years ago, you dedicated tax revenue to street paving. The very first year, we used it towards paving. Last year, we took that money and we put it into a street reserve so we could build up the nest egg and have a more, or a bigger street resurfacing project. And so we will, have a bigger street resurfacing project this year. West Sycamore was that drainage issue that we talked with you about, not only on West Sycamore, but at the intersection of Gannon and Arundel. Last year we just funded the design, now we're going to construction. That's going to be a very big project. Last year we fully funded, and I bet we're going to get bids this summer. Okay, May, even sooner. So you should see construction this summer on the South Arundel sidewalk and drainage. Our next drainage project is at Little River. Specifically, this is that drainage swell that keeps getting wider and deeper between 97 and the parking lot. And that's going to be a big project as well. Fleet replacement, we've had that for the past couple of years. This year, we're calling it Fleet Replacement Plus. Fire is really driving that, but also we've got a substantial piece of equipment. It's specifically the knuckle boom. It's a very popular service for your citizens. Does a lot of the yard debris removal, and now both of those are, up until about last week, both of them were down, so we're putting that replacement before you in this upcoming budget. Fire station, we're just analyzing, do we need a fire station? If we do need a fire station, where do we locate it? Now we're getting onto the path of spending more money and doing more significant things. So this is going to be the preliminary engineering report for the fire station. IT, we updated the web page and we got the radios bought for the fire department. This year we're continuing the radio purchases, and this is for the police department. The AV in this room and in the control panel across the hallway is coming up on 10 years old. A lot of that equipment is not only getting out of date, but it's not serviceable anymore, and we'll have more details as we talk about that at one of your upcoming work sessions. Community and economic development, last year you funded the strategic plan, and that's coming to fruition, and now we're turning that into Zebulon 2030 and some of the action plans that we're putting into the budget that bring to fruition some of the focus areas that are driving towards that vision you've got, is to grow smart. And so during one of our work sessions, we'll have our Chamber of Commerce in conjunction with our planning department talk about some economic development strategies. The first one being on business retention, which is rather than trying to take the more riskier proposition of bringing businesses here, focusing on the businesses that are already here and allowing them to grow and expand. Under Vibrant Downtown, we're adding to the facade program that has been so successful, and we're putting something before you for your consideration, which is to have a grant program for some internal improvements inside of the building. And under Small Town, the completion or the construction of Beaver Dam Greenway, that has now been 100% designed, and we're in the middle of chasing Part F grants. We'll need additional contributions from the town if we want to move forward on construction. And then the last expenditure area is on debt service. You'll see that it has gone down as we're paying down premiums. I put an asterisk there because I want to point out a couple of debts that we will be taking on if you do adopt the budget that we put before you. A couple of things as far as the debts that we've got. The debt on this facility is driving a big chunk of the debt that we pay. We'll have that until FY 2029, but on a more positive side, we got a lot of things that we're about to pay off. So this will be the last year of payment for the community center, for some ball field lights, for some vehicles and equipment that we had financed a while back. And then the things I wanted to point out to you is if we take on the debt that we put into the budget, that would be $91,000 a year to FY 2034 for the fire ladder, and then $86,000 a year for the fire engine up until 2026. Come 2026, we're going to take that money and roll it into the next fire engine replacement. And what our hopes is, as these payments go down or as the tax base grows, we'll have some savings that we can put into purchase of another truck, because right after the fire engine that needs to be replaced in 2026 is another one that needs to be replaced in 2028. And here are the two storm drain projects that I mentioned, one for West Sycamore and one for Little River Dam. So, getting back to the budget schedule and process, you've just now completed the budget message and lived to tell about it. First work session is on May 15th. The topics that we'll focus on is on fleet management. We'll talk to you about the fire equipment and the knuckle boom. We will also talk to you, have a presentation about greenways, bicycles, and pedestrians. We'll share with you what the 5-year capital improvement plan looks like, what are some of the small sidewalks that we're going to do, what are some of the bigger sidewalks we're going to try to do by coupling with community development block grant that Wake County provides and is provided to us to build the South Arundel sidewalk. We'll also talk about the construction of Beaver Dam Greenway. As with all work sessions, there'll be a time for public input, whether it's related to these topics or not. May 23rd, we'll have another budget work session. This one will focus on property management, specifically on the fire station and a maintenance shed proposed for a public works facility. We'll talk with you also about information technology. We'll talk to you about more specifics about the AV equipment that I briefly mentioned. But also at last year's retreat, we gave you a synopsis of where we were on our IT infrastructure. This is going to be a presentation to tell you what we have done since then and what our plans are for the future to address the problems that we shared with you, not this retreat, but the previous retreat. Once again, time for public input. And then the last work session is going to focus on community and economic development. We'll spend time talking about the facade grant programs, but adding to the facade grant program, as well as information on the business retention program. And once again, time for public input. June 4th, you'll have your budget ordinance public hearing, and then you can adopt the budget June 4th, June 13th, or any time not later than July 1st. So if this wasn't enough and you want to know more, we've got copies available for you. You can visit and peruse a copy at the Zebulon Regional Library. There's also a copy at the Eastern Regional Center. We'll have a copy at the Zebulon Chamber of Commerce. We'll have a copy available at the Zebulon Community Center, as well as one here in the municipal complex. Thankfully, we've got a local newspaper who is dedicated to covering local government news, and so I'm sure they'll be doing a good job in covering the story. You also can check it out on our webpage, www.townofzebulon.org. And if you're really committed and you want a copy to own, we'll have to charge you for it because we have to pay you to run copies. But if you're that dedicated, not only do I want to get you a copy, but I want to talk to you about maybe some citizen engagement opportunities in the future. And with that, I am done unless you have any questions.
Well, thank you, Joe. We've got a working month ahead of us here, so I will ask the board not to ask any specific questions with regards to any item until we get to those, but if you have any general questions, now would be the time to ask those. Okay, thank you.
I don't have a question, but I would say we've got a whole lot on our plates to look at, so.
You're right. Well, having said that, Dale, I'll start with you on board comments tonight.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Don?
No.
I'd just like to comment about Saturday, how great it was. Denise is sitting out there. Denise did a great job in town. A lot of people, and I think everyone enjoyed it. So we've been talking about having more things for the community to get together, and that was one of the things that I think a lot of people really enjoyed. So thanks for it was a great day, beautiful day. Thank you.
Deborah?
I like to say I really enjoyed it, and I got there the first time about 9:30 and turned around and came back. I enjoyed it so much I came back and started eating.
All right. Good deal. Okay, well, the manager's report, Joe?
Well, you all have mentioned the May Day celebration. I appreciate that, so I won't repeat that. It was a phenomenal day. I did want to give an announcement that the Cairo Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa sorority, they have been working with us the past couple of years to make improvements at Gill Street Park. They are going to be hosting a family fun day at Gill Street Park on Saturday, May 19th from 10 until 2. And so please come on out and enjoy food, games, music, fun, and fellowship. And I'd also like to recognize Clerk Lisa Markland. She's got a couple of personnel announcements she'd like to make.
We've got 2 new employees. One's an intern, and one is Stacy Paratori, who is our deputy town clerk and HR technician. Stacy, stand. She comes to us from Wyrick Robbins. She worked there for 12 years. She lives in Zebulon, and she's been with us about a month. And then we have Andrew Schunig, who is in the back. If you'll stand, Andrew. He is our MPA student who will be here through probably about the end of July, spending time in each of the departments, learning about what we do and how business runs with the government. And we're glad to have him.
Welcome, both of you.
That's all that I had.
Okay. All right, folks, it's time to adjourn then. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second? We're adjourned.